I don't know if you noticed this during the game, but they had Archie Griffin take a carry, and I've heard that guy's pretty good. So if you want to add him to the running back room, that could be interesting.
That's a possibility there. Yeah, he went untouched into the end zone. I don't know. I would have loved to have seen, maybe something else out of him and another carry there. But yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, you don't want to give too much away in the spring if you're planning to bring that guy back. No, but for the running backs that actually will play on Saturdays next fall, there were 35 total carries for the running or for ball carriers, I guess. Chip Trainum, oh no, that's not right. I'm looking at the wrong stat. 47 total carries. Chip Trainum was the most effective, 110 yards and a touchdown, had a big run, 65 yards. I thought Dallin Hayden had some nice things. He only had 31 yards on 12 carries, but I like what I see from Dallin Hayden. But this room in general is going to be really interesting to follow once we get into fall camp. You add back in Travion Henderson. You'll probably add back in Evan Pryor, who is coming off the knee injury that he suffered last preseason. And you'll have a healthier Mayan Williams, hopefully fully healthy Mayan Williams. That's 5 guys that on a lot of teams in the country would probably be starters or key rotation guys that have, except for Evan Pryor, have all played significant snaps at running back for Ohio State. How do you handle this is going to be a big question for Tony Alford. And he gets asked this a lot heading into seasons where there's not a clear, returning incumbent starter like a J.K. Dobbins. And he's always kind of said it's going to work itself out. And if you look at it, it generally has. I mean, last year it was because of the injuries, but I don't know if I can't think of a running back room that has been in this situation, at least at Ohio State, but I imagine it's pretty rare around the country where you have 4 guys that legitimately, and Chip Trainum, a lot of his carries over his career came at Arizona State, but 4 guys that have legitimately played college football, all returning and looking to play. We've talked to Travion Henderson. He's excited to get back. We talked to him this spring. Dallin Hayden said, he's not worried about if his numbers go down from last year. This will only be his sophomore season. So, the other thing with it is that it's not like each guy has a clear defined running back role, right? I mean, I think you can say Mayan Williams could be your kind of bruiser, short yardage situation. Evan Pryor is guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and do some things that way. But Travion Henderson can do a little bit of both of those things when he's healthy. Dallin Hayden showed that he's while young, a pretty diverse running back who can, take things to the outside, but can also run up the middle. Same with Chip Trainum, who's both strong and fast. They said when he was the linebackers last year that he was the strongest and fastest of the linebackers. So it's certainly a question of how you get all these guys on the field. I think it's a good problem to have if you're Ohio State, especially as you break in a new quarterback. But again, I go back to this offensive line. Nothing goes forward as the way that Ohio State wants it to do unless this offensive line is figured out and playing at a high level.
I'm going to have to shed a thought that I've had, and I know that Ohio State fans have had about Chip Trainum, and that's that, well, most recently he was a linebacker, so he must not have been as good as the other guys. Therefore, he's not as good. And just kind of looking at him through that lens that he's the lesser of the running backs. And then the other thing that you bring up is obviously the various roles and the various skill sets that they have. And does the situation dictate that? I got to think that there's only certain situations, you're down 4, there's a minute left on the clock, you're obviously going to be throwing the football. So pass protection or maybe an outlet guy are your best routes. But other than that, the diversity of the running backs, there's not a clear distinction, although Mayan Williams seems to be the guy that's going to move some people in the middle. But I was asked this by a caller yesterday, how I would handle the running back situation. And I said, well, the only 2 ways that I can see is that either Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams have, equity build up and they're considered the starters and they have to be kind of moved out of those positions. Or you go into August camp and you say, which would be my approach, because I think they've all shown something against quality opponents in key moments, to say, open competition. And hopefully we get to a place where we can utilize all of them based on their skill sets.
Yeah, the Chip Trainum, going back to your first point, the story is crazy to me because coming out of high school, Ohio State wanted him to play linebacker. He's from Ohio. They want him to play linebacker. He wanted to play running back. So he goes to Arizona State. 2 years, Arizona State plays running back. Transfers back to Ohio State to play linebacker. Starts last season as a backup linebacker. Moves over to running back only because of injuries at the position to help provide depth. Now he's a guy that's fully in the running back room. I just am. What changed? Why did Ohio State feel he couldn't play running back? Maybe it was just getting him in the building and seeing him do it was the difference. I don't know, but I don't think you see that trajectory very often, especially if Chip Trainor goes from here and, has a good rest of his college career and, ends up in the NFL or something like that. It's just a crazy story. I think the most likely scenario is Ohio State starts the season like it did last year with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams as the top 2 1A, 1B starters, and then mixes in whoever else earns time. I think when both guys were healthy, both Henderson and Williams last year, which was not for very long, remember, it was working pretty well with that rotation. And then, if you can mix in certain other guys, I think you do that, especially as you mentioned early on, when you're probably going to be up big in a lot of those games anyway. But like Notre Dame, unless something changes, I think those are the 2 guys that see the vast majority of the carries, at least right now. They got to get healthy, though. I mean, it's been an issue for both guys to stay healthy throughout a season. And we know running backs in general just tend to get bangs and bruises and whatnot. So, it's like I said, it's a good thing to have. But, you get into the season and guys want carries. Dallin Hayden had 111 carries last year. We get it halfway through the season and he's only had 20 carries. I think I don't think that would cause an issue with him, but it would be a very different role to take.